Welcome to the Timescales Interviews. I'm Grego, your host, and today I have a special guest, writer and independent comic creator. Right here is none other than Vaughn Coleman. Hi, Vaughn. How's it going?
It's going great, man. How's it going with you?
Good. So I guess you're right here in the U.S. as well, right?
Right
Yeah.
here in New Jersey, yeah.
Okay. Well, greets from California. What's it like there today?
The weather's great today, actually. The weather's very sunny. I got back from the gym, so I'm feeling good. Sweaty, but good.
Okay.
And
Cool. It's
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, good. And then on top of that, my artist sent me some pages for issue 2. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Um, thanks for meeting with me today. This whole thing about independent comic creation is something that's really fascinating to me, and I know it has to be interesting to other people as well. What I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about where you started, how you're marketing your comic, and basically what your comic consists of, without spoilers, of course, such as who wrote it, who did the art. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. I guess it would be reasonable to guess that you are a comic fan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if something tipped you off about that.
So, got a got a whole shelf of them right there, huh?
Yeah. Well, and then some to read piles galore. Yeah.
Okay, you have a to read pile also. I'm
Of
glad I'm
course.
not the only one. I
Oh,
actually I
everyone does.
right.
It's
I
bigger
went
than my
through.
red pile, I would say.
Yeah, mine too. And I actually went through a to read pile just this last weekend. And would you believe I found something that somebody sent me 2 years ago? And it got buried under some other books, and I never even opened the package. So I I, I just recently discovered a little gem in my to read pile. But um, so when did you get started? Was there a time when you picked up a comic and went, "Oh, this is cool," and instantly fell in love with them, or was it something over time?
I would say so. I got into superhero comics when I was a kid. Well, I mean, I got
Okay.
into superheroes. I'm sorry, when I was a kid, not comics. I had I liked like the Justice League animated show, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, and then that would evolve. And then the Dark Knight came out, and that would keep evolving. But I was into superheroes, right? Very much into it. The X-Men movies, you name it. And then I actually came up with the idea for what would become Phenomenova second grade. So I had been watching the movies and I'd get into the Lego sets, all kinds of stuff. But I was aware of the comics, but I hadn't really read them or dove down until finally I remember I was in 6th grade and I was starting a new school, and Batman the Animated Series is coming on this channel called The Hub, which unfortunately isn't around anymore. Rest in peace.
Hmm.
And they it just so happened that day that they were playing starting. I didn't even realize it was the pilot episode, reruns of Batman the Animated Series on Leather Wings. So I watched that episode and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then every day was like a ritual. Every day I come back from school. At this time, I watch an episode of Batman the Animated Series. And then I do whatever, procrastinate or don't forget my homework. It's whatever. And I'm doing that, and then Arkham City comes out. So it was like the perfect time to get into Batman. It was like boom, Batman the Animated Series leading right into Batman Arkham City. I finished Arkham City. Now Christmas happens. I decided to get all the Batman the Animated Series episodes on DVD. I got 4 box sets, and then on top of that, I decided, you know what? I keep reading about. I've been in the comics in the comic book characters for so long. I've been watching videos talking about the comics as I'm diving more into the lore. Uh, let's get into them. I want more. I want to know where all this comes from. And so I'm looking up what the best Batman comics are. It's Christmas is coming around, and I get Batman Hush for Christmas. And that was the first comic I ever read. And since there, I've been a fan.
So you said this started in second grade?
Second grade is my when my idea first came about. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now, tell us a little bit about Phenomenova, such as who wrote it, who did the art.
So yeah, I mean, I wrote Phenomenova. My artist, I wanted to message him real quick. Philip Cruz is my artist. He is amazing. His work is absolutely stellar. Even though I was just looking at it, and it was just looking at Hush reminded me of something I had to message to him. Um, because he likes to do full bleeds, and then printers don't always love that. So we're trying to find a balance now with issue 2.
Okay.
But so yeah, I mean, I came up with this idea. I'm a writer. I went to film school. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, and it was when I was in college. And I start facing this cruel, mistress called reality, and basically I'm learning that all these big budget ideas, well, you got to go through studios, you got to do all this, you got to do all this. And then for some reason, I just got this random itch. I just said, I feel like reading X-Men. And, I'm a lucky man. My mom's friend from high school ended up producing the first 2 X-Men movies. So I
Really?
asked him, I was like, where do I start? He goes, Giant Size X-Men #1, then read into Claremont's run. So I did, and it was just the way the stories would go from issue to issue to issue, new idea, and just developing the characters while having these big budget stories and all these new characters and everything. I was like, I can't really do this in film. But then I was learning, simultaneously, I was learning about the independent comic scene. And I was like, that's something I like making YouTube videos. I like networking. I like going to conventions. And the more I thought about it, the more I engaged with it, the more the idea of turning this idea I had when I was a kid into a comic book really helped. And there was a point in time where I had envisioned it as an animated series. In fact, originally it was a script for an animated series episode. And then
Okay.
I turned it and converted it into a comic book script. And it was around this time, as I'm starting to put the pieces together, that I get this job to work as an assistant editor for Hunter Ninja Bear by Chuck Dixon. And I read one of his scripts and I caught the bug and I decided, you know what, I'm going to pitch it, at least my idea. As soon as I get it, I'm working behind the scenes. Okay, how does a comic book script work? Like this? Okay, let me turn it from screenplay to... And I would just, and I wrote the first 11 issues of my comic. Now
Wow.
I'm in the process of rewriting now. Much better writer now. But I was like, I'm going to have the whole series. I'm going to pitch it. And the worst case scenario, I'll get rejected and I have a pile of scripts I'm sitting on. So the rejection did happen, but it was also they weren't ready. But it was, it was good because I was undeterred, and I said, I'm gonna make this book. I'm gonna do whatever I can. I am going to make this book with or without them. And so I did, which is crazy to think about, but it's done. The book
Well,
is done.
okay, and something you just touched on is something I was going to ask you about, and that's how you deal with rejection, because that seems right there to be something in common with all creators. And it sounds like to me you were expecting it, and you were ready, and you were not discouraged.
I don't know if I was expecting it, but I went okay, because I guess this is kind of the mentality I had with Hollywood. It's like, okay, people, you're taught to go through the studio system, this. You're not really taught
Hmm.
to be an entrepreneur. You're taught to be a part of a system. You're not taught to be an entrepreneur. You're taught to ask for jobs at companies. These are what companies are looking for now. These are you're looking for now. You're not taught to be an innovator. You're taught to be a part of the machine. You're not taught to create the machine. You're not taught to manage the machine. You're not taught to run the machine. Um, and I thought, why not? I mean, I'm looking at the comic book industry, the film industry, and I'm by no means saying that I'm better than all of that. There are reasons they operate the way they do, but I'm reading a lot of current, like I was reading some current X-Men. I was like, I don't like this.
Hmm.
I don't like a lot of entertainment that's coming out. What do
Right.
I have to follow rules that result in products that I'm not crazy about these days? I'll let me take the lessons I want to learn and apply them. And where I fail, I can try again.
Okay. Now, this leads up to something that I was going to try to determine, and you've already pretty much proven it. You really love creating, don't you?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I've been doing all the boring parts
Right.
lately. But the thing is, you got to have the attitude that this is leading to the fun parts. And so yesterday I was like, man, I didn't get to write at all. But then it's
Right.
like, well, yeah, but I'm creating, I'm doing. It's like you're moving the stuff so that way you can boom brush through those issues. Like I'm annoyed because it was like, oh, I want to be able to rewrite, get back to where I was. So because like there was a period of time where I just was like, I'm just gonna write issues today during my senior year. And I was like, I want to do that again. But now I have a company, and here's the thing. I'm focused on closing out this book and been building a website. The work never stops. It's time management is tough. But learning things like, for example, talking to my artist about technical stuff like bleeds. We're both learning together. You know, he and I are both becoming better creators. I'm learning how to write better for the page. He's learning how to draw better for the page.
Okay. So, for somebody young or old that has an idea similar or the same to yours as yours, somebody that would be looking to you to learn from, somebody that also really loves creating comics, um, do they have to have a formal education in writing if they're going to write their own comic?
I'm not going to pretend like my education didn't help. I will say comic book writing doesn't seem to be taken that seriously as a medium. And the one thing that was really striking to me about comic books, there's no exact format. There isn't. There are formats, but it's totally like screenplays were so strict. They were very, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. This is the kind of language we like to use in a screenplay. This is what makes you a better screenwriter. Comic book scripts aren't like that, but storytelling is storytelling. So all the stuff I learned in screenwriting, all the stuff I learned in writing classes, yeah. I will say, I think you should train if you're, this is the thing, and I will say this drives me crazy about a lot of independent comic book writers is they're not writers. And what I mean by that is, okay, technically you are a writer, right? But
Mhm.
they don't treat writing as a craft the same way artists do. They think, oh, it's a story. That's that. No, you don't. They are a lot of the time they're not thinking about things on a deeper level. They think it needs to just they're not a lot of the time. I think that indie comics creators treat writing like an afterthought. They treat writing just as something anyone can do. And anyone, yes, anyone can do it, but there was a reason why you would hire someone different to write than who would draw, right? Is because there's I mean, you look at Chris Claremont's X-Men art. Chris would add stuff to the page that wasn't there, you know, and my artist and I have a very good connection with that. But I mean, I would learn. There was this book on screenwriting that I read that even then it's just general writing advice. There's this book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I would say take your favorite stories and analyze why they work. Um, what makes you feel a certain way. So you can kind of train yourself. You don't literally have to take classes, but I won't pretend like my classes didn't help me. They absolutely did. But the
Okay.
majority of the work you're going to do, you don't just go to classes and come out after taking notes as a good writer. You have to apply it over and over and over again. The way I became a better writer wasn't because I went to school for it, because I was wrote those issues when I was at film school. I came after having finished issue one and seen the words on the page and taken time away from it. I stepped back and I became a better writer because I kept going and going and going until I was happy with it. I'd get feedback. I'd learn from people around me and the masters that came before me. And you kind of learn through repetition, kind of like how an artist, you see an artist, they can draw a great piece of art now, right?
Mm.
Well, maybe now they can. Maybe now they could bang out a script soon, but they probably took days or no, not days, longer than that, just to do singular pieces, drawing the same thing over and over and over again. Because, and writing is the same way. You have to get it to flow.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of writers don't really take the time to hone their craft. I would say the best teacher really is experience. And then what you want to do is take your script to someone who you're afraid of. Take it to friends, but take it to the kinds that will be honest with you.
Hmm.
Or even, you know, what's funny is because people are like, oh, don't just give it to your mom. They'll always like it. No, my mom's brutal, man, and it's good. My mom's a bit of a grammar Nazi too, which is where I got she'd be like, come here, honey. I'm like, Mom, I'm just gonna leave you alone. And then she comes back with like a stack of post-its. She's like, grammar. And this is after my editor went through it. She's like, I don't like the wording here. I don't like, I'm like, I thought it was just gonna be a quick, oh, mom's gonna give me a thumbs up. She's like, I liked it, honey, but here's a stack of, and you know, that's good. I remember I was in I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but I was at film school
No, that's very interesting.
and we started around junior senior year in a circle reading each other's works Now the earlier drafts, it was then called the Vortex.
Mhm.
It was the script, and it was a comic script, but it was still, like I said, writing is good. Writing is good writing. You have to write for the medium you like, whether it be screenplays, comics, whatever. So they would give me feedback, and they'd be like, "I don't get it. This character comes off as a jerk. What do you mean he's right? No, don't you understand his point?" And I'd get upset, and I'd realize, well, if I'm in a room of 6 people and everyone is telling me that they read it one way and I wrote it a different way, maybe, just maybe, I'm not communicating myself clearly. And writing is a form of communication. And this is one of the tough parts, is there is some truth to the fact that, yeah, some people will say no. You have to understand that not everyone's going to say yes to you. There are people you respect who will tell you that they're not crazy about your work.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you ask too many people, you get too many feedbacks, and you just ultimately have to decide, no, I'm going forward. But they would give me harsh feedback. I don't really feel anything. Vaughn, what's the point of this scene? And I would keep rewriting and keep rewriting, because what you have to do, and this is what I found the most important part of writing. My professor kind of taught me this. So I'll always be pro. If you go to school for writing, absolutely, it's good. Now, are you doomed to fail if you don't go to school for writing? No. But does it help? Sure. Of course it does. One of the things my professor would tell me is to boil your idea. What is it thematically about? And I'd be like, what do you mean? Why can't you just do a story? Why does it have to be about that? When I realize is that, well, everything's kind of saying something, because they'd be like, almost, you have to take a stance. And I'd be like, well, South Park has episodes where they have politicians that are both terrible. And then I'd realize, well, that is taking a stance. That's saying
Yeah.
they're all idiots. That's still a stance. A stance doesn't have to be this way or that way. A stance can be anything, right? Um, John Wick, we are pro John Wick killing all those guys that killed his dog. That is a stance. It doesn't, whatever your stance, and you're allowed to have fun with things, but they could
Right.
still take a stance. What you realize is also, when you look at stories, you realize that often they're complex, but often they're very simple. And it's about telling a complex story in a simple manner that's easy to understand. Die Hard, I was talking to someone. Really, it's about a guy trying to get his wife back, is what it is. The terrorists are just in the way. They're just a means to that end. I mean, if you really
Okay.
think about it. All right, think, like, what's his goal at the start of the movie? His goal is to reunite with his wife. What does he do at the end of the movie? He reunites with his wife.
Right. Yeah. All
How does
right.
he how does he win her back? By killing terrorists.
I
And she
haven't seen
goes,
that one. I have
"You
not seen
never
that
seen
for a
Die
while.
Hard?"
Oh no, no, well, no, it's been a long time.
Oh, I
It's
thought I
been
was
a
gonna say, you
yeah.
Californian and you haven't seen
Mm.
well, actually, a man, more
Tip
like. You're
typically my brother and I watch it together about once a year, but it's actually been, I'd say, over 5 years or more. We keep missing that. Lately our favorite Christmas movie is Falling Down with Michael Douglas. So
I've
uh
actually never seen that.
oh no. Okay, yeah, you were missing out, man. You
I
need
have
to
an
check
even
that out.
worse confession. It's been over 10 years since I've seen some of the Star Wars movies.
Well, that would be easy to do, I think.
Well,
I
I'm talking some of the originals. I'm not talking.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I've seen the originals so many times. I don't know that that I could get it much more out of them. I've kind of milked them dry. Pretty much have the dialogues memorized, but there's something I want to ask you. You said that you have a good relationship with your artist. But then uh before we get to the artist, we would be skipping over something if I didn't ask you about editing. And
Mm.
you did tell me that you have taken your stories to friends and peers for constructive criticism.
Oh yeah.
Um, and let me give you my opinion of my very first introduction to an editor, and it's actually related to Star Wars and the original movie.
Let's go.
Back in, first of all, the Star Wars novel was ghost written by Alan Dean Foster. It was not written by George Lucas,
That
from
I didn't
my
know.
understanding. Yeah. If you look at that gold cover book from December of 1976, where it's just called Star Wars, it says George
There's a
Lucas at
book?
the top. Yeah, yeah, there's a novel. In fact, the Star Wars, the original one from 1977, it actually came out as a novel early because the movie was late. So you
I
could
didn't know
actually,
that.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I read that novel so many times my cover fell off. But that novel had extended scenes in it, such as one with Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine. which did not make it into the movie. Some of it actually did get filmed, but it was cut out, and then it somehow it got leaked, or George Lucas finally released it years later. But there were extra scenes in that. And when I found out that that book had been edited, I was pretty young. I was new to entertainment, and I was mad. I could not believe that somebody would have chopped something out of this book that I totally loved. I would read that book almost every day. The same novel. And I was pretty much pissed off to find out that somebody went and cut out something out of this book that I bought that I might have enjoyed. So I initially had a very negative view of editors, like who gives them the right to edit and chop out an author's work. It made no sense to me. Now, I've since learned that the importance of editing. I've talked to authors that are very pro editing.
Mhm.
So tell me anything about editing. Are you pro editing? Have you ever
Yeah, well,
disagreed with your editor? Do you think an editor is important?
absolutely. Well, here's the thing, right?
Mhm.
Editors, you can hear good and bad editor stories any which way you go, everywhere.
Okay.
So I'm not that kind of editor. I'm an editor for hire, which means that the story, Hunter Ninja Bear, for example, was done. It wasn't my story to tell. There's the kind of editor that's operating above them, like where they have the final say, or before it goes to the publishers, right? That's not the kind of editor I was. I was the kind of editor that you bring me on basically for feedback on your vision, and I help. The way I approach it is, I am here to curtail your vision. I'm here to, like, my one friend was writing a Bad Girl book. Issue 1 is written. Now issue 2, his editor can't stay. And I go, okay, this guy was a Cuba school guy. I go, how have you ever been like formally trained to write? He goes like, not really. I'm like, here's some writing lessons for you. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk, and we spend. What I would do, the first thing I do when I take on an editor job is I have like a long conversation with the person I'm editing for. What is your story about? Well, that might be a simple question, but I keep going. Okay, let me see this. Here is my thoughts on your script. I don't think you're really conveying what you're saying, or I do think you're conveying here, that kind of thing. My job is to help them tell their vision in the best way possible. Um, I'll be like, this scene isn't really doing, what's the point of this scene? Before I just say chop it off, there has to be a reason behind it. Sometimes you'll find scenes in movies that are great, or in comics or whatever. Like, there were scenes in my comic that I loved that just hampered the pacing, that just kind of muddied the water. And
Mhm.
it's not on its own. Beautiful scene, beautiful line. There's lines of dialogue I had to cut. Sometimes you have to just decide, how do I make the best product possible and tell it in the way that fits the creator's vision. That's what I think the role of an editor is. Now it becomes different when you're at, say, when you're working at Marvel and DC. I think that's a whole different level of responsibility. And this is where part of my frustration lies. Because nowadays, like, I remember hearing stories from, like, I'm friends with Graham Nolan, or you listen to Chuck Dixon, they talk about how Denny O'Neil would be like a shepherd for Batman. Okay, he was a Batman writer, but it wasn't about his beliefs. It was, we have to make sure Batman stays consistent. That meant that if someone pitched an idea that was out of character for Batman, how good of a story it wasn't really, doesn't matter if you're going to go against the character of Batman. So I think editors have an important role, but you need to decide what their role is early on, what kind of editor they are. And I've only worked in the indie space. I haven't worked as a producer. I haven't worked for a major company where I'm above the things. I'm always below the person that I'm hired, uh, which is fine, which is what it should be. But I think when you hire, you have to have the humility to hire an editor. Hire someone you can respect.
Okay. Okay. All right, very good. You have now touched on the next thing I was going to move on to, where I want to talk to you about art just a little bit.
All right.
But as far as you being involved in the indie side, that is exactly what I thought, man. And that I'm so happy to hear that, because I want to learn and teach other people that have the same dreams and goals that you do, how they can actually market their work once all of the work is done. Okay.
Mhm.
But as far as art, you said something very interesting that you have a good relationship with your artist. Now, I'm wondering, first, I'm wondering how you met your artist. Was it perhaps somebody that you went to school with, or did you meet them online? But in
Facebook.
most, you what?
Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. Okay. So you met him on social media.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Now, when I think in my mind of writing a comic and then picking an artist, I think of the tremendously in-depth manner in which I would need to explain to this artist what my world looks like, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
But and there would have to be a starting point, and I could easily imagine somebody turning something in and me looking at it and going, "Oh wow, they just don't get it. This is not it. This is not what I meant, and this is not what I want." How do you get an artist to understand your world to where you guys are working as closely together as you need to be to create the product that you had in mind?
Oh man, it's a lot. It is a lot. Let me say this. There are going to be growing pains, but you need an artist that you think will grow with you. You need my artist, God bless him. He put up with my all of that for a while. We would go back and forth. Understand that you were going to take the longest time in the beginning, or when you're, for example, there was like a solid week or so where we kept going back and forth on a character's blindfold color. There was times where if you look at my earlier scripts, you were to see that compared to later ones, which someone did ask if I should ever do a tier where I sell my script. Maybe I will, but I've revised it so many times. But where I'll write so much, so much, so much. But a lot of my writing is honestly in my messages back and forth to him. You send me a thumbnail, we have a whole discussion on it. Like even just now, right?
Hmm.
Um, Someone you're gonna learn the process with is great. But for example, there's one part where you see a character's backstory in issue 2. I'll give you this as an example. Where I go, okay, because the actual actions in this are there's something happening in the village, then this, then this, then this, and this. There's actual, but I decided to take almost the whole page and say, before I get into the page descriptions of the panels you're going to be drawing, I'm going to describe this history of this culture, give tons to pull from. So you have, maybe you could use aspects of this kind of architecture. There's this village that has there, for example, I'll say this. There's this clan in issue 2. Here's a little sneak peek. Um, that kind of that is referenced, and you've seen once, and even though it's like in 1 or 2 panels where they have a whole history. Now I don't have to write that, but I decided let me write a ton because I'd rather give my artist more to pull from than less. Or a better example, in issue 1, if you'll see my character, he has a makeshift costume. So I described, yeah, basically just here's what I would say for his costume. Here's a list of possible suggestions. Like this is stuff that's all around him. He basically grabs stuff. I want to make sure he has a mask that covers his face, something that covers his hair, gloves. He's trying to be incognito and look cool, but it looks very makeshift. And now, even though this wasn't mentioned there, in an earlier draft, this page had been cut, but an earlier draft that he had read, there was a part where he was skateboarding. Now, that part is not in the script. Skateboarding is never even mentioned in the current draft. But because he kept that in mind, if you look at his design, he has a skateboarding helmet, skateboarding shoulder pads, and knee pads.
Okay.
So sometimes you really want to give that. And what's important is you want to make sure you have an artist that actually pays attention to the nuances in what you're saying, and an artist who, like an actor, who's directable. There are great actors, but if they're not directable, if they're not willing to say, if they only go with their gut instinct and they're not willing to do revisions, that's a
Hmm.
problem. You
Okay.
need to have an artist that you can communicate with, that is
Okay.
willing to do your vision. And you need to also sometimes concede on your vision that they're better, but you need to be able to talk. Clear communication with your artist. I cannot stress enough how important it is. I refuse to have, if an artist wasn't going to talk on the phone, I refuse to. I mean, there have been exceptions. Like there was one colorist I worked with on my first published work. That was a 10-pager that I didn't talk to him on the phone, but we had clear communication through text. And when I didn't understand something, he would go, okay, I think our language barrier, here's what he would do. He would screenshot it and then draw red circles and say, this needs to be like this. And I'd be, oh, okay.
Okay.
Clear communication. Whereas there was one artist who, God bless him, great guy, but I could just tell the language, it was either language barrier or just we had different creative processes. Incredible artist, but I just, after a few pages, I paid him for his work, but I was like, I just think that it's not going to work. And could be me. I can be a pain. I can be an absolute pain. I'm surprised that my artist never slapped me around, but I'm always telling him, I'm like, dude, you could yell at me if I'm like too much. You could be like, dude, take it easy. There was one time where I made him keep revising this character's hairstyle over and over and over again. It was like 2 pages worth of hairstyles. And he goes, dude, we got to just pick one at some point. And I'm like, you're right.
I can see that.
You know?
Right. Okay. All right, awesome. Vaughn, I know you're wanting to go and talk to your artist. So
oh no, it's okay. I can keep talking. That's the thing about him too. He's on a 12-hour time difference.
Okay.
So there's like a few hours in the day, but normally what I do is I just leave him broad, and sometimes it's a week where it's like I just accept the fact that he's working, but I'll just keep messaging him. Sometimes too much, but I'll be like, here, and then he just responds to it all in one spurt. And then we don't talk for a while, and then we talk for a while. So it was really funny when I interviewed him. It was like us talking actually for the first time, not about the work, but not in working. Hey, why did you draw it this way? This is awesome, but I never really asked you. I just kind of liked it.
Okay, so you've interviewed your artist.
Yeah, on my channel. It was probably one of the best interviews I did. I should share that out again.
Yeah, okay, awesome. I want to see that. And we're going to put a link to your YouTube channel down below. Plus, we're going to put a link to your campaigns. Now, one last question about art. Have you had one or both or either of these things happen? Have you gone to an artist and what they came back with, you just looked at it and went, no, this is absolutely not anything close whatsoever as to what is in my world and my story.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've had that happen. Now, have you ever had an artist that came back and either immediately or very early on, you went, oh yes, they've got it.
But yes, this artist actually, although I feel like I was always looking for problems, and at this point I was nitpicking, and nitpicking is a thing. But you also don't want to overlook stuff. Get second opinions too. Like sometimes I'll look at an artist. I'm like, this person, I really like their work, and I'd send it to someone else who works in comics. They go, hold on, their figure work is great, but look at their panel layouts, not very varied. And you go, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. But there's so many comic book artists, some of the most talented people on the face of the earth, and sometimes the style just isn't what you're going for. And sometimes you need to accept that. And sometimes they also will draw stuff in a way that you don't think. Sometimes it's good to, I don't like, wait a minute. I do really like that, actually. There were times where I'd say, no, yes, early on. And then he'd go, okay, what do you want? Sometimes it's okay to look at it, sleep on it. But also, if something has a visceral reaction, sometimes you give too many specifics and sometimes you give not enough. And there's a tough balance. And that is why you need to work on it. That's part of being a comic book writer, is knowing when to tell them this. Sometimes you have to see it a certain way to know how you feel. Like if you're like, I don't like this. Well, why not? Well, it's supposed to be this. Well, why isn't it that? Well, because this, and this. So when you see something that it isn't, it almost helps you affirm what it is.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like, for example, there was a page in issue 2 where in my script, I say this person leans in and says something, and then my artist drew that, but he had an angrier look on his face. I said, no, this one, I know it's a small thing, but you need to change this character's facial expression because it totally changes the nature of their conversation. Yes, the wording is still the same. It's the same thing with an actor. If how many famous scenes can you imagine if they just said a line in a different tone, it would have changed the context?
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. All right. Now, I just thought of one thing here as you were mentioning that. You had mentioned originally that you wanted a animated series.
Hmm.
Now, with Phenomenova, do you see any time in the future when that could move beyond print, physical format to an actual animation?
I would love that.
Okay.
But my thing is I'm not doing an animation pitch. That's one of the things I learned. I'm doing it as a comic, and then if it
Right.
happens, it happens. But I mean, man, I would love that.
Okay.
I would
Now,
probably love to voice Miles, the main character. He may or may not
you
be inspired by me and my experiences a bit, but I do like to act, so I would love that.
okay.
I would absolutely adore that.
Awesome. Now, is Phenomenova only a comic, or could it be considered a graphic novel?
I would consider it a comic book right now. People have
Uh,
said that. I decided to make it its giant size first issue.
okay. And how
I
many
don't consider it a
pages?
graphic novel because it's not a complete. Well, it is kind of a complete story, but I uh I felt I wanted the main thing we want to get into issue 2. It is 65 pages of story, 68
Wow.
pages.
Okay,
68.
so you doubled the 32 page requirement for it to be considered a book.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, let's say somebody watching this, learning from you. Thank you for your time, by the way, and we're almost done. Hang in there. Um, they have been to school and they've been trained in writing or not. Okay. They have finished their story. It has been edited. It's the art is finally finished after they went through 9 artists, I guess, and they've got it done. How do you turn this into a physical, tangible piece of merchandise?
No,
Ha,
that is
ha,
what the part I'm figuring out. I'm working with the printer now. So
okay,
I don't have all the answers yet, but
okay,
I'm getting it. I would say learn to format or hire someone who can format. Or work
okay.
with a printer who will help you format. That is what I'm doing now.
hmm
Um,
That's what I
so
read when I saw you on socials yesterday or day before yesterday. And I was reading that. I'm thinking, man, I really need to talk to this guy because you're at a very interesting stage. And
yeah, I have to learn that it's interesting. I have to, it's part of it is the mentality. I have to stop calling it, oh, this is so boring. I'm making my dream.
right,
There are
right,
some pages
exactly,
that are less fun than others, but oh, I have to give feedback on the artist. I have to? No, I get to. And that is a mentality I
right,
have to work on more. But
right.
like for example, I checked 2 things off today that I thought I was done with, right? You see that? I just
hmm
unchecked them off because turns out there's more. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of times you think you're done. You're not.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, and good luck with finishing your printing process. I'm gonna keep following you online. I used to follow you on Twitter for a long time, and I don't know what happened. I looked the other day and I wasn't following you, and
No, that's
it
strange.
wasn't intentional. I at some point I ran some software that cleaned up where I was following like way too many people or something, and I think it
Uh,
actually removed people I actually did know and liked following. But we're going to put a link to your Twitter down below. We're going to put a link to your Twitter and your Facebook. So after we're done recording, I'll need you to send the Facebook one because I haven't seen that. And then we'll put these below. Okay. Now, the final links we're going to put below, probably at the very top, is going to be your campaigns where you are selling Phenomenova. Okay,
mhm.
where people can pre-order, or I'm sorry, pre-order is not the correct word. They can. How
Back
would
it
you
or pre-order. I mean, here's the thing.
back
I
it?
say both because the truth
Okay,
is that the book is funded. You are guaranteed to get it, but it is considered backing because the
okay,
product isn't in hand yet. So
right.
really, I mean, whatever you want, pre-order, back, however you decide to call it. I'm gonna say backers if you, but really it doesn't matter. Either way, you're guaranteed to get the book. You're ordering the book in advance, and if you order it during this time from these platforms, these crowdfunding platforms, you do get some bonuses. Right now, you're gonna, because I'm a month behind, I decided to give everyone a special. You get a special Phenomenova logo sticker. You get 2 trading cards. You get a mini print. You get a second mini print if you back on Fun of My Comics. So that's already 5 things, and then you might be able to get a sixth thing, another trading card if we reach our 20K goal. And what here's the thing, it was on Kickstarter. Now it's on Indiegogo and Fund My Comic. It's closing out on Indiegogo and Fund My Comic soon. So
Okay,
basically what that means is that you can if we hit 20K, we're past 16K, we're almost at 17K. If we hit 20K by like Sunday around midnight, everyone gets another free trading card. So
Okay. Okay, awesome. You just answered my last questions right there. I thought you had I must have read that your goal was $20,000 and I thought that you already hit that, but it sounds like you're really close to it. And
no.
that's impressive. You know, that you talk about making your dream work and come true. That's good. And I hope that leaves enough left for you after this whole process and the printing and the shipping and creations of advertising and all of that, to where you can continue funding yourself for the next issue. You know, I guess that's the plan, right?
Yeah, issue 2 is already I'm using money from issue 1 for issue 2, and I'm hoping the
Okay.
more I get, the because my goal is to keep my artists full-time employed to so that way as long as I can break even, I'm going to keep doing Phenomenova is my plan.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that it's on Indiegogo and Fund My Comic. What made you choose one or both of those platforms? Is one of them better than the other, or how are they different?
Well, Fund My Comic is it's independent. You can talk to the guy who runs it. He's very nice. He's very kind. There's no as far as I know, there's no censorship really on the platform. Um,
Okay, good.
so that's good. You take a tiny percentage. He takes a really tiny percentage, so which means I've made a lot more money on that platform. Indiegogo, I've had people tell me that they just prefer Indiegogo as a platform, so do that. I've had people tell me they prefer Kickstarter, and Kickstarter has a larger audience that really only sticks to Kickstarter. So I added those later, but I decided if I'm going to bring my audience to one place, let's bring it to Fund My Comic.
Okay,
If they don't have if they're going to back me wherever, let's take it where they have the smallest percentage. Let's help the little guy out.
okay, awesome. All right, so you are on Indiegogo and Fund My Comic at present?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And then what about Kickstarter?
Kickstarter I've closed out on. I didn't realize you could keep it open after the fact, so next time I'll keep it open. But it ran for 30 days, raised almost $2,000 on there.
Okay, awesome. All right. Hey, Vaughn, thank you very much. It's really nice to meet you. And thank you for answering my questions because
Of
I know that
course.
along the point, someone that wants to do what you're doing is going to watch this. And
Yes.
hopefully it will help them.
They
And
can
thank
reach out
you.
to me.
Okay, thank you very kindly for that. Now, last question. Why should we go and order your comic Phenomenova? What can we expect? You know, no spoilers unless you want, but give us some meat. What can we expect? Why? Why should we
Yeah.
go back it?
So one of the reasons you should back this book, aside from just the bonuses, because the bonuses are dressing around the story, right? Phenomenova, I always say this, in an age of deconstruction and an age of cynicism, Phenomenova is a reconstruction and a reconstitution of the superhero genre. It's everything I love. It's basically a modern, coming of age superhero story set 20 years after World War III and follows the idealistic son of a war hero as he strikes out to become a superhero inspired by his father's heroic legacy. And in my world, superheroes fought during World War III. That is a story I would love to tell. As I was writing the backstory, I was like, I gotta do this too. But I realized we went this whole time without me actually talking about my story. But that is
Right.
what my story is about. It is a superhero story set 20 years after World War III. My main character's superhero name is Galvanite. He has a makeshift costume in issue 1 because he hasn't quite earned his right to be a superhero yet. But the plan is that he will be trained by one of the veteran superheroes who fought during World War III to become a part of a team of the next generation of superheroes called Phenomenova. So Phenomenova is the next generation of heroes, and they're aspiring to live up to the heroic ideals. They're facing new threats in an ever-changing world. 20 years after World War III, with superheroes, the world has changed quite a bit, and that means our heroes have to change along with it without losing the heroic ideals.
Okay, absolutely excellent. You just sold me, and it
Thank
was
you.
one very brief little statement. You said it was everything that you love. So I want to see what you loved creating. So I'm going to go back it.
Thank
So
you.
Vaughn, was there anything that I didn't ask you today that you wish I would have?
I don't think so. Here's the thing. I have so
Uh,
many interviews, so if you don't cover it, I'm sure someone will.
Okay.
I'm not gonna dwell on it. I'll tell you this though, as an interviewer, oftentimes I'll get off an interview and I'm like, oh, I forget.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
forgot that. So
Yep. I've done it. That's why I try to have that fallback question there. I remember doing an interview one time and I forgot something that would have been extremely important and interesting, and I'll never get that back. So, all right, Vaughn. Hey, thank you very much. Everybody, go check out Phenomenova, and the links are going to be right down below.
Yeah.
Check out whichever platform that you want to back it on,
Yeah.
and
Check out my YouTube channel as well, just Vaughn Coleman. Subscribe if you haven't already. That's where I'm hosting my closeout party. And go to rebeloasisstudios.com and join the mailing list if you haven't already. I am going to make a full website. For now, it's just a landing page.
okay, sweet. All right, man. Nice to meet you. And
Great to meet you too.
yep, have a nice afternoon, and cheers from hot California.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great one. See you.
Okay, you too.